John, an 8-year-old, waves goodbye to his parents who have just enrolled him in a new boarding school. It suddenly dawns on him that he's all by himself. He has to make new friends as soon as now. He realizes that there are no more goodnight hugs from mom, no cozy atmosphere of the home, no devotional time for the family anymore. He just realizes that he has to learn to deal with the subtle bullying within the school. You know, the name calling. Come here, fatty. You slim boy. You have such big ears. Those are subtle bullyings that a student does not find necessary to report. In some cases, he even has to deal with explicit bullying within the boarding school setup. John realizes that his tears are not welcome in this place. In fact, you risk being bullied when you look vulnerable. So he has to develop a tough exterior to be able to survive within this environment. In addition to all this, John has to put up with academic pressure, which is by no means a joke. In such schools, it is not acceptable to fail. We all have heard of the stories, or you have been in a boarding school where you knew that if you failed, if your grade even dropped from what it was the last time, you would be punished for having dropped in your grade. So this is the new environment that John finds himself in. Nobody prepared him. Nobody has even taught him how to make friends, but he finds himself there, having to learn to make new friends all by himself. And all the time, oh John, we love you so much. That's why we're taking you to this boarding school. This boarding school will increase your chances for you to get a good national school, like the Kenya High School, Miranda, Alliance. So count it a blessing, my boy. Nobody ever bothers to look at the world through the boy's eyes. How is the boy feeling? What does the boy think about all these things that he's going through? Psychologists, most notably Joy Cheverin, have described this as the boarding school syndrome. She uses 4 letters to neatly summarize the syndrome: A, B, C, D. A stands for abandonment. Once the parents have left, the child realizes that they have been abandoned. The people who loved him, the people who loved her, they have all gone, and she or he has remained alone within the boarding school. The child becomes bereaved. They have lost a cozy home. They have lost everything that they held dear to them, including their attachment figures, the parents who loved them unconditionally, and now they're on their own. So this child goes through some form of bereavement. Many people like to call it homesickness. We brush it aside as homesickness. C stands for confinement. The child realizes that they are confined within the boarding school and there is no escaping. No parent is coming back soon except for the prescribed times, half term, maybe visiting days. So most of these children would cry their tears, yet they would have to do it privately, secretly. One boy confessed that he would go to the toilet and just cry and cry. But by the time they're leaving the toilet, the eyes are dry, like they have not cried. They have to look tough to prevent themselves from being bullied. Once such a child realizes that there is no escape, they dissociate. That is the D. They learn to separate themselves from the inner turmoil that is going on within them. It's like they take all those feelings, lock them up somewhere, and just bury them within themselves. They develop a survival personality. But what does this do to the child's personality? How does this affect a child in adulthood? These children have been shown to be very bitter people when they grow up. They are angry because of what went on in their lives when they were in boarding school. Most of these children cannot form meaningful relationships. Why? Because they have become emotionally numb. The fact that they learned to dissociate developed into emotional numbness. They are no longer vulnerable. They don't feel pain, they don't feel love. They just locked up their feelings. And of course, for a relationship to work, we have to be able to empathize. We have to be able to love. We have to be able to be vulnerable to the person we are relating to. So many times, they have failed relationships. If they are to make good bosses in some companies somewhere, of course they would make bosses because their academic work, their academic performance is excellent. Boarding schools provide excellent academic performance. However, these people lack interpersonal relationship skills because of the fact that they are emotionally numb. So this impedes their personal success within organizations, within working stations. These children are usually faced with insecurity. They are usually insecure because back in the boarding school, you had to watch your back. Someone can steal your clothes, someone can bully you, the teacher can cane you because you're failing your exam. So all the time, they have learned to be anxious. They have anxious personalities. They have avoidant attachment styles. Why? Their parents left them when they were so young. They left them there in the boarding schools. So every time a relationship is coming to fruition, these kids break the relationship prematurely. I'm going to trust this person, and eventually they are going to break my heart. So the adult now breaks their relationships prematurely, including therapy relationships. Now, all this bitterness that is within the child comes home to roost. Decades later, the child can face depression. The child can even become physically sick because of the pent-up emotion within them, because of the repressed emotions within them. Parents argue that when they take their kids to boarding school, their kids learn to become independent. Their kids get discipline. Yes, they will become independent. But at what cost are they becoming independent? At the cost of becoming cold human beings, hardened human beings. To be human is to be able to love, is to be able to empathize. To be human is to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to share, not always looking for me, but also looking out for other people. This certainly cannot be taught in a boarding school. We have one boarding master or mistress taking care of at least 50 kids. In the evening, this boarding master must go back to their home. The kids are left alone to their own whims. That is where all these vices take place. sexual abuse, the bullying happens because the kids are left to their own whims. Even initiation into questionable religious ideas. These kids are much too young. They have not yet developed values to guide them. Character formation is best done at home by a gracious, loving parent. It is the duty of us parents, it is the duty of the guardians to help our children to develop values that are going to help them later on in their life. We cannot leave it with the boarding school, the boarding masters, the guidance and counseling personnel within the schools. No, no, no. It is your duty as a parent. It is my duty as a parent. If you're thinking about taking your child to boarding school, make an informed decision. See how you're going to counteract all those effects of boarding school. If you can relate with what I'm sharing today, maybe you are in a boarding school, maybe you can remember being taunted, maybe you can remember being bullied somewhere in school, I'd like you to share your comments with us. I'd like you to share your experiences. If you have a child who has gone through this and they're very angry with you, I would advise you to go for therapy. Take this child for therapy. Let them be able to put a closure to all those pent-up feelings within them. Thank you, my dear parents. If you have not yet subscribed, kindly subscribe so that we may continue to grow together.